How the heck are you, everybody? I'm Fastidious. Welcome to my channel and welcome to our fifth and final class-specific artifact tier list. I've done this so far for already fighters, healers, mages, and defenders. Now it is time for marksmen. If you missed the first 4 of this epic series that's taken me literally forever to get done, thank you guys so much for your patience. I'll have them all linked in the description and the top pinned comment of this video. But I think the vast majority of you know the drill by now, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about these marksman artifacts.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
So I want to start by saying this group of artifacts certainly is, of all the classes, the one with the most consistent quality and variety. There's a lot of usable artifacts in here, so you're going to see a lot of pretty solid grades. So I'm excited to talk about them. Let's get into it. Kicking it off with Blood Bond Signate. So as has been the case in all the videos in this series, I'm going to include graphics as you're looking at right now of the artifact at 0 promotion, level 1, and then max promotion, level 25. So let's read it. Let's see what it is like. The Blood Bond Signet at basic promotion, 0 stars, and max 5-star promotion. Reduces max HP by 30% and increases critical damage by 20%. When you max the thing out, the reduction of max HP is half. It's only 15%, so not as big a penalty. And the increase in critical damage is more than twice as strong, right? It's going to be like 225% of what we were looking at before. It's going up from 20% to 45% crit damage. That is pretty dang solid. This is just straight up a good artifact. It's not a mind-blowing artifact. We all know crit damage is really good, but when it comes to crit damage and artifacts, it's not as powerful as, some kind of post-deployment attack boost or some post-calculation damage boost. But it's solid, and undeniably this can be super strong on someone that doesn't mind taking an HP penalty, someone like Hotsit or Allura because they're invisible, maybe some big kind of AoE range marksman that's quite far away. I mean, in general, most of your marksmen don't take too much damage in a lot of content. I think it's super usable. I don't think it's game-breaking, but it's just a very solid A. Starting off with a very solid A, and there's just going to be a lot of very solid grades throughout this whole class. There's just good artifacts here. All right, up next we have Broken Nightmare. So this, I believe, we're getting right into the good stuff. The most underrated artifact in the entire class. For marksmen, this is a supremely strong artifact. I really like it. So let's break it down. At 0 promotion, level 1, each basic attack launched increases attack by 3% for 2 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. That's not so thrilling, right? You got to go pretty fast to maintain 100% uptime on those 3 stacks. You need to have an attack interval of less than 1 second because you need to place it, then that 2-second timer kicks off. You want to land 2 more hits in those next 2 seconds to have your 3 stacks, and then to keep cycling appropriately, right? And only 3%, so at base promo, you're only talking 9%, even if you're going rapid speed, under 1.0 seconds for your attack interval. Not too thrilling, 9% attack. However, if you can get this thing totally maxed out, promoted level 25, it's really great, and that's not so hard to do because, guys, this is a legendary artifact. So when it is maxed out, everything remains the same, except each stack is now worth 8%. 8% attack boost, right? So this can be a 24% attack boost if you have your hero at just under 1.0 seconds. Anything less than 1.0 second attack interval, you're gonna have a 24% post-deployment attack boost. That is so supremely powerful. Attack is king in this game. I've said it in basically every one of these videos so far, as do nearly all other content creators, because attack is our god in Watcher of Realms. If you can get your hero going rapidly quick, under 1.0 seconds, 24% attack boost post-deployment is just tremendous. That being said, that is pretty hard to do, and you need to be attacking all those times to make it happen. So there needs to be attacking targets that aren't dying, that you're just going to keep wailing away at. That being said, that's most targets you're going to be attacking. Single target marksmen are the only ones that are going to have that base 2.0 second attack interval from which you can scale it down to under 1 second. So when you can take full advantage of this, it is crazy strong. That being said, just keeping 2 stacks up when it's maxed out, that's still 16%, which is equal to Keen Wisdom. At that point, it is a wash, so it's like, why not go for the epic? Yes, you will have higher base stats from the legendary, but, is that worth the huge investment? Huge. relative to the epic artifact, a big investment getting this thing maxed out? I don't think so. So this is really well suited for your super speedy single target marksman. Maybe you've got a rapid Silas, but most likely it's going to go on like a Calypso, maybe like an Idril or a Brienne. When you can do it, it is super viable, but because it's hard to maneuver, I'm not going to put it at S or anything, but I am actually going to put it above the Bloodbond Signate because, yeah, when used correctly, it is insanely strong. I mean, 24%, sure, it's not as powerful as like a Tear of Twilight with the mages. That's why it's not higher, but this is our best way to get our highest post-deployment attack boost in the entire class. Up next, we have got now another mythic artifact. This is an exclusive mythic artifact, so what do I mean by that? It's not hero exclusive, but it can only be obtained in two ways. From the guild reward shop, so when you get your guild coins from all your weekly guild activities, and from the exclusive artifact forge, so it is in that pool, even though it's not hero specific. So let's read it. Increases damage by 10%. When dealing damage, restores 3% of hero's max HP. Increases damage by 15%, this is at max promotion now. When dealing damage, restores 5% of hero's max HP. So that is a really, really healthy health point restoration, right? Even at the base promo, I mean 3%, as long as you're hitting quickly, it's just every time you deal damage. That's just great. It's not X amount of damage or with this much frequency, it's just when damage is dealt, you get that heal. Compare that to the kind of heals you get from something like with the fighters, you know, with the Lunacy Visor, this is way stronger. That being said, the damage boost, it's not crazy. You know, there's other ways to get similar things, but the heal is unique, it's nice, it's viable. I think it's super niche, but this certainly is not a bad artifact. I'm going to rank this very solidly at B. Now we've got an all-time classic, straight to S, Tariel's Gaze. Just kidding, we call it Idril's Gaze now. Quick shout out to her old name, may it rest in peace. At level 1 base promotion, dealing critical damage has a 15% chance to ignore 30% of the target's defense and magical resistance for 3 seconds. So you have a 3-second uptime on just ignoring nearly a third, 30% of basically all the target's defenses, whether that be their defense, so resisting kind of physical damage, piercing damage, or magical resistance, resisting magic damage. So what makes this artifact really special, besides just being really good, is when you do reach that final level of promotion, you get a boost in potency. This is quite similar to like Wailing Skull, which is like the best artifact in the game for fighters, right? So what am I talking about? Well, the chance for critical damage to ignore the target's defense and magical resistance has now gone up. Each promotion, it goes up by 2%, so from 15% to now 25%, so a 1 in 4 chance of this happening. But the amount you ignore, the potency, also increases, and that happens from 4-star promotion to max 5-star promotion. It jumps from 30% ignoring to 40% ignoring. I mean, that's significant. Another 10% of the defenses, another 10% of the magical resistance is ignored. Specifically with regard to defense, it makes the amount of attack you have to build on your hero that's wearing this artifact that much lower. And like we know, attack is king. So that threshold, that mark that you have to clear when building attack onto your hero is now that much lower. And when you build over it, you get that much more benefit. And moreover, the builds just become way easier and you can be a lot stronger. And so this artifact specifically makes it a lot easier to use heroes that are normally harder to build for endgame content because they have lower base stats. I'm thinking epic heroes, and I'm thinking Idril, right? She completely shines in the artifact named after her. It's not her exclusive, but it is beautiful for her, right? Because she doesn't have very high base attack. This allows that amount of attack you have to build on her to be much less, so she can really, really shine and just put out crazy damage, as you've seen in like any Gear Grade 3 guide ever. I'm not putting it S+, and that is only because I think it's extremely hard. This would be probably the #1 legendary in the game, legendary artifact, that I'd want to put S+, but because the disparity between legendary artifacts and mythic artifacts is so large, I just don't think I can put a legendary artifact at S+. Let me know what you guys think. I think it's super strong, and I think for certain heroes it can totally transform them, but I don't think it reaches that level of game-changingness that something like a Wailing Skull does for a fighter, or something like a Bastion Ring does for a defender. So, amazing artifact, but on to the next. Now we have the Pin of Precision. So at base promo, if the hero hasn't received any damage within the last 6 seconds, their damage will be increased by 10%. And then at max, that damage increase is doubled to 20%. All in all, really solid. I mean, 20% damage boost is nice. Damage boost is very easy to get in this class, right? There's many artifacts that you're going to see that give it to your hero. I think this might be the first one so far. I guess we had it with Ekor's Chalice, but there's a lot of ways to do it. This is kind of niche, that hasn't received any damage within the last 6 seconds. Does it work well on like a Hotsit or Allura or Vargas when they're invisible? Sure. Maybe you have a hero tucked away in the corner. but I think there are other ways to come by this, and most people aren't going to build this out to max promotion, so you're not going to get that real benefit of the plus 20% damage increase. I think it's like fine. Because it's not so special and because it is strictly outclassed by some other options and it's not the most versatile artifact in the world, I think it is very solidly C. Viable, but not special at all, and not that cool. On to the next one, we have Reaper's Emblem. This is one I'm pretty low on. I don't like this artifact much at all. Increases damage by 5%. After killing the target, increases damage by an additional 5%, stacking up to 2 times. The effect lasts for 10 seconds. When you max it out, that initial increase in damage is going to be 10%, not 5%. And then each additional boost that you stack up is also going to be 10%, not 5%. So if you can get max stacks at base promo, you're talking 15%. And then if you can get max stacks at max promo, you got a 30% damage increase. It is solid, but this is like actually really niche. How much content are you consistently killing enemies to maintain max stacks on this? You don't face very many large swarms of mobs that need to be taken out specifically by marksmen or piercing damage heroes in this game, right? It's not really how it shakes out. Usually it's content like the resource raids, and most specifically Gear Raid 1, where you need like magic damage to take out a bunch of enemies. You need that kind of AoE. I don't see things where you're just picking off enemy after enemy after enemy to maintain the uptime to get this real benefit of what sounds really good, like a 30% damage boost. Could there be exceptions? Sure. Like in Gear Raid 3 up to stage 18 on both sides when you get those swarms, in that mid-game kind of stuff, you do get lots of enemies, so you could get some really quick uptime really fast, but usually you're killing them with AoE damage-dealing heroes, so you're killing several at once. I don't really see how it's going to be the best option when we talk about some of the future options. Moreover, when you get to the later game stuff and the end game stuff, it's really only the left side, and like I said, this one is strictly outclassed. I don't love it too much. Could you be picking off enemies like in Nightmare Void Rift when you're in Crimson Star and you get those flyers? Maybe your Silas will stack this up. I guess it's viable, and for that I will put it in B, but I just think there's a lot of things that are better than it and easier to use and don't have this kind of strange needs to kill with this amount of frequency condition. If this was for a mage where they're consistently in, like an AoE mage, where they're consistently in this kind of content where they're killing many enemies and they could maintain uptime, I think it'd be cool, right? But for what it actually is, I don't think it's that crazy. I don't love it too much. Low end of B. Now we've got the Shadow Gaze, another legendary artifact, so another one that increases attack, and I like it quite a bit, specifically for that reason. So at base promo level 1, increases attack by 10% for every 5 attacks, lasting for 5 seconds, and then at max promo, that attack increase is 20%. So you can see the final max potential attack increase is not going to match the max potential of Broken Nightmare. That was 24%. This is 20%. That being said, you can get full trigger, even if you're going really slowly. You won't get great uptime, but you could be hitting every 3.5 seconds if you built 0 attack speed on like an AoE marksman, and then, it might take whatever that is, 17.5 seconds, right, to finally trigger it, but then it'll last for 5 seconds, you'll get the benefit. If you build it pretty fast, you could have a nice like 50-50, and then if you got a really fast hero that's at like 1 second, you will have 100% uptime. But at that point, Broken Nightmare would be better, but this one is easier to use, so its max potential is lower, ease of use is higher, still worse, but it's solid. I'm going to put it at the top end of B. Coming up next, you can see there's only 12 artifacts in this class, so it's not going to take us too long. Onto the Sharpshooter Crest. Here's an instant S once again. It's a best in slot for basically every AoE marksman in the game. Super easy to use, the condition is really easy to meet, and the damage boost is great. So at base promo, when there are no enemies within one tile, AoE damage is increased by 20%, and then at max promo, same condition, and now AoE damage is increased by 30%. So if you got someone like your Razak or your Nyx, someone like Maul, that's consistently dealing AoE damage, they all have large ranges, nice long ranges, so they're almost always going to be more than one tile away. This is like 100% uptime. It's very easy, it's very plug and play, it's very strong. I don't think there's that much more to say. I will say the reason some other artifacts are going to get lower ratings than they would is because this one, Sharpshooter Crest, just strictly outclasses them for the kind of heroes that other artifacts would shine on, right? This one is the best option. So next one, we have Spirit Siphon, the most famous artifact from the class, if I do say so myself. I'm going to do something controversial here. I'm putting it in S. The top of S, but I'm not putting it in S+. Let me read what it does and let me explain. So, at base promo, increases damage dealt to the same target by 5% with each consecutive hit up to 3 times, However, the effect will disappear if the hero switches to a different target. Then at max promo, that increase in damage dealt to the same target goes up to 10%, again stacking 3 times. So at base promo, we can get a 15% damage boost if you get max stacks. At max promo, we're talking a 30% damage boost, and this is an easy condition to meet. In certain content, it's impossible not to meet it, right? In Guild Boss, there's only ever one target, so you're just keying in on that, and you're good to go. Moreover, in Styx, if you're using like a Silas or something in Styx, or Calypso, they're always hitting the same target. So you're just gonna be max out plus 30% damage all the time, right? It's really, really great. The reason I'm not putting it at S+, I mean, it's a no-brainer, it's an amazing artifact, it's best in slot for many of the best heroes in the game for a lot of content. The reason I'm not giving it S+, and you guys can fight with me in the comments, is because it does not transform the hero. We've given 3 S+s for artifacts in our previous 4 videos. For defenders, we had the Bastion Ring, for mages, we had Tear Twilight, and for fighters, we had Wailing Skull. In my opinion, all 3 of those are not only best in slot and supremely strong, they legitimately transform the hero that wears it, right? If you think of mages, a maxed out Tear Twilight, an increase of 30% attack post-deployment is outrageously strong in this game. It can turn a normal Virna from doing fine to literally doing ridiculous damage. I was doing a 121 takeover 2 days ago. We weren't even close. We were getting like 42 out of 59 kills. Then he farmed AMR nonstop, put up like 70,000 points. Shout out to Michael. The next day we went in and beat it. His Virna went from 0 to hero. It's as simple as that. That is not what this artifact does because it's a damage boost. It's not an attack boost. Then if you look at something like Wailing Skull, you're literally summoning a whole other thing. You're getting an extra source of hits. With Zealatu in the Guild Boss, you get this weird interaction where she's literally broken and putting out way too much damage. Can also shine on just about every other fighter in the game, bar none, essentially. And then for defenders, I mean, Bastion Ring is best in slot for basically every defender in the game. It is required wearing when it comes to artifacts for the Tank Codex, for the Hellfire Emperor. Those things to me, those are S+s. Those are incredibly transformative. This, the Spirit Siphon, is just an amazing artifact. Full stop. There's nothing too special to it. It's just great. And for that, I can't give it S+. You guys let me know what you think. All in all, I just think it's great. End of story. On to the next one. We're getting towards the end here. We have the Taunting Gaze. Base promo, increased distance means increased damage. So what does that mean? Every 1 tile away from the target increases damage dealt by 2%. Cool thing here, there's no cap on number of tiles and number of damage increase, but also what a weird niche artifact. Then at max promo, increased distance again means increased damage, but now every 1 tile away is an increase in damage of 4.5%. So you read this and you think Idril, right? Because who's going to have enough range, have enough distance between them and the target, enough tiles in between to get a big enough boost? But even Idril at like her max distance, let's say in Gear Raid 321, she's going for the guys in the back left corner, back right corner. I counted it. I think depending on how they count it, it's either 7 or 8 tiles because I don't think they count diagonals. I think it would just be like up and down vertical distance. You're talking 7 or 8 tiles. So if the way they do count it, it is 8, the max potential then is 36%, right? That's pretty cool, but that's an extremely, extremely specific circumstance. Those mobs are usually not the big problem, and I think at that point, if you invested so heavily in this, why didn't you invest in some other artifact that we've seen that is better? I do think there is that viability, and I do think early and mid game it could be exceptionally strong in Idril. So for that, I'm not putting it at the back or anything, but I can't give it a B. So it's going to be the top section of C. Next up, we have the North's Judgement, our only D in the class. Let me explain shortly. Let's get into it right now. When shielded, increases attack by 10%. When the shield disappears, the bonus will last for 6 more seconds. And then at max promo, this is a 15% attack boost. So another way to get a nice attack boost. However, there are only 3 Northerner marksmen in the game that can consistently get high uptime on shields, so can consistently be shielded. And those are going to be Maul, those are going to be Brunor, and those are going to be Harpoon. Brunor and Harpoon, you're almost certainly not going to use. I mean, someone in the comments might tell me that you do use those guys all the time. Power to you, but most people absolutely do not. And then Maul, super popular, but as we've discussed, there are better options, right? Strictly, like Sharpshooter Crest will be better. Attack is awesome, but Sharpshooter Crest will be better. The reason it is not in C and it is in D, if you look at these numbers, 15%, that is less than Keen Wisdom, right? Which would be 16%. Keen Wisdom has a condition of its own. You need an allied hero 2 tiles away or less. But that being said, for most circumstances, you will very comfortably meet that condition. You might be thinking, but what if you have someone all the way on the left side or all the way on the right side for early mid-game Gear Raid 3, or later game, your Mauls all the way over on the left for Gear Raid like 319, 320, 321? Sure, But at that point, again, I do think there are way better options, namely Sharpshooter Crest. And on top of that, rarely are you bringing a Northerner Marksman into Gear Raid 3 to begin with. Sure, could it work in other content, in Void Rift, maybe in campaign? Fine, that's why it's not an F. There is some semblance of viability, but all in all, it's just not that great. So let's wrap this thing up with the Watchguard's Disguise. Very simple one to end on. Increase damage to airborne units by 10%, and then at max promo, increase damage to airborne units by 15%. Nice and simple, and for that, it's definitely not a D. It's the most plug-and-play artifact in the game, because when it comes to marksmen, most of the time they are there to hit airborne units, so it's kind of just like a, hey, wear this plus 10% damage, or at max promo plus 15% damage. Of course, there are many, many better options, but it's really simple and really easy to use. So I'm just going to put it at the back of C. I'll put it right above Pin of Precision, because it's just more universal. It's just solid. Actually, I'm going to put it above Taunting Days as well for the same reason. All in all, that is going to be my Marksman artifact tier list. I hope it was worth the wait. You can see that it's like a very nice balance. There's just tons of quality, nice variety, and nearly all of them are usable, if not pretty good. I'm really happy with this class. There's a reason I wanted to finish up with this one, because I think Marksman might be the most popular class of heroes in the game, and I do think this was the most interesting crop. This series has been an absolute doozy. That is why it took me so long in the end. Originally, I thought I'd knock this out in a week. It took nearly 3 weeks. Cutting out all these pictures and all like the description stacked on top, formatted thing. It took me way too long. I'm sure someone else could do it way faster, but it took me almost 15 hours. So if you appreciate this stuff, do let me know, but more importantly, let my editor Mitchell know, because he's had to edit these monstrosities. You don't know how long it takes me to film these and how many silly little mistakes I make. I hope it was worth the effort. I hope for you guys it was worth the wait, and I hope Mitchell remains with one shred of his sanity. Thank you guys so much for watching. Share it with your mother. I've been Fastidious, and I'll see you guys real soon.
Fastidious.